Let's start off by taking a brief look at the Maya interface. Now, Maya has a lot of functionality, and because of that, it has a lot of stuff in the interface. But the interface itself is very well organized. So if we understand the organization and how things are laid out, we'll understand the package a little bit better. So let's start off at the top left corner, and you'll see that we have a menu bar along the top. Now, this has a lot of the standard things that you're familiar with, such as a file menu that allows you to open and close files, an edit menu that gives you functionality such as cut, copy, and paste. We also have a create menu, allows you to create any number of different types of objects. A select menu allows you to select and deselect things, as well as a number of other ones, such as modify, display, and windows. But as you get past the Windows menu, you'll start to see ones that are a little bit more custom. In this case, we see one that says Mesh. Now, Mesh is a modeling function, and that's because we have the modeling menu set active. Now, we have this little pull-down menu here, and this allows us to actually change how our menus are. So if I go over to rigging, notice how these menu options change. If I go to, say, rendering, they will change again. So we have actually more functionality than we can fit on the menu with Maya. So if there's something that you don't see or can't get to, the first thing you want to do is just make sure you're in the right menu set. Now, you can also create custom menu sets, but for right now, we're just going to use the stock ones. So I'm going to put this back to modeling. Now, along this second line here, we have our menu selection here. We also have some graphic ways to do common functions, such as this one here, which will create a new scene, open a scene, or save a scene. We also have an undo and a redo. In addition to this, we have selection masks, which allow us to select by type of object. And we also have our snap options, which allow us to snap to different things as we're creating things. Here we have some rendering commands. So if we want to render a scene, all we have to do is press one of these buttons and we can render an image. Now along the right here, we have some additional functionality. We have one here called the channel box, and we can toggle that on or off. We also can toggle on or off what are called our tool settings. And these are ways that we can select or move different types of objects. So whatever tool you have active, you can change your options here, and we can toggle that on or off. We also have what's called an attribute editor. And when we toggle this, it actually shows up here as a tabbed panel. So here we have the channel box, which will show you your object's position, rotation, and scale. And the attribute editor allows you to dig deeper into that. And we don't have anything on the screen right now, so we'll get to use this a little bit later. And then finally, we have another one for what's called the modeling toolkit, which allows us some additional modeling features. So I'm going to toggle that off, and let's just go back to the channel box. Now here we have what are called shelves, and these are standard lists of commands, and they're graphic. So if we wanted to say, for example, create a sphere or a cube, we could do that here. And so each major function of the package has its own shelf, and you can create things just from the shelf. Now, this is a very handy way to get to functions very quickly. I use this a lot. Now, you can also create your own custom shelves, and that's a really great way to add in custom functionality. Now, along the left-hand side of the interface, we have our select tools. So we have a standard select. We also have what's called a lasso tool and a paint select tool. We also have our standard move, rotate, and scale. So if you're manipulating objects, you'll be using a lot of these. Now, a little further to the left, we have our layouts panel. Now, I'm on a reduced resolution screen, so there are some layouts that are not showing here, but let me just show you how these work. We have our standard layout here, which is just a 3D view. If we click on this one, it changes it to another layout. And in this case, we have a 4 view. We have a top, front, and side view, in addition to our perspective view. And then we have other ones here. This one gives you what's called an outliner with a perspective view. This one here is for animation. It gives you an animation curve and so on. So I'm going to go back to my just standard layout here. But you can very easily just switch between layouts right here. Now, along the bottom, we have a couple of different panels here. One, we have our time slider. So when you start to animate, this is how you will scrub through the animation and know which frame you're on. Now, below that, we have what's called the range slider. So this is the total length of the animation, as well as how much of that we're seeing. So I have this little slider here, and this actually allows me to slide through the entire animation. Now, the outer numbers from 1 to 200 are the total length of the animation. And the inner numbers are what we are seeing. So in this case, it's from 1 to 120. Now, all I have to do is just click on one of these boxes here, and I can actually change that. Click on this tab here, and I can change what portion of that we see, and then I can slide it here as well. Now, along the bottom here, we have what are called a mel command. So if you want to, you can actually just type text-based commands into Maya. And then finally, along the bottom here, we have a helpline. And this is great because all you have to do is just hover over any tool and it will tell you what it does. And then when you start to use that tool, it will give you hints as to how to proceed. So if you don't really know how to do something, just go ahead and look at this bottom line here, and it may give you enough of a hint to get you going. Now, along the right, we have a couple of buttons here. This button here says Animation Preferences. But if we click on this, it actually gets us to actually all the preferences. It just kind of defaults to animation preferences, but we can go into all of our other preferences. And we'll get to these in just a little bit. And then we also have one here for the script editor. Now, we're not going to get into script editing here. We do have some courses on scripting in Maya, but this is really how you can get into the guts of Maya and actually program Maya. So this is a really great way to create simple commands or even more complex commands. So as you can see, this is a pretty cohesive layout. And as we start to work with Maya, you'll start to get the hang of how to use this interface.